It's time for 515 Fantasy Football.
I know football. Are you ready for some football?
Domination on Sundays begins with listening to these guys on Thursdays.
You ready for this?
Over 40 years of fantasy football experience between them.
Yeah!
One is a proud veteran of the United States Marine Corps, husband and father, entering his 18th year of fantasy competition. Brian Eikenberry. The other, also a proud husband and father, is one of the winningest fantasy minds in the state. Celebrating 24 years of excellence. Andy Hall.
Let's get the game on!
It's showtime. The 515 Fantasy Football Show with your hosts, Andy Hall and Brian Eikenberry.
Hello and welcome to the final show of the 2016-2017 preseason 515 Fantasy Football. Andy Hall, Brian Eikenberry. Excited because we're just that much closer to getting this thing started.
It's a little bittersweet for me. These happy, silly, tickle fight 4 weeks have been fun. It's great to just mumble and talk and yap about cool stuff, but it's time to get down to business now.
The business at hand, of course, is winning you a fantasy football championship. Brian and I have plenty of experience doing that for ourselves over the course of our storied careers. But now that the show is here, we're giving you what we know.
That's right. It's time to crack open our skulls and let it all bleed out.
Not literally, though.
Oh. Ew.
Little squeamish.
Okay.
A number of ways we can be found on a week-to-week basis. Of course, there's iTunes, Stitcher, on the air at 1350 AM ESPN in Des Moines. We are online at espndesmoines.com under local shows. It is there you will find each of our episodes available for your listening pleasure or download, and blog entries. Once the season gets started, especially, that is going to be super cool feature on the website there.
Yeah, there's going to be some new exclusives. It's all free. Come check it out. There's nothing there. So, there's lots of stuff there. There's just no cost associated with this. We're just trying to help people out, make it fun.
Absolutely. And you know what? There are still folks, believe it or not, Brian, that have not drafted yet. I know it. A lot of folks did. This past weekend was National Draft Weekend, but some people wait until the Labor Day holiday to draft their teams.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I don't know what I'd do if I had to wait one more week to draft. I can't wait for the third week of preseason to draft, but just waiting out one more week, I couldn't do it.
We invite you to like our Facebook page, 515 Fantasy Football, and follow us on Twitter at 515 Fantasy. We love to interact with you, and my guarantee, of course, is we will never, ever ignore you, as some of the, fantasy football professionals out there tend to do a lot of.
We might disagree with you, we might dislike you, but we will never ignore you.
You take the time to send us a Facebook message, post on our page. You know, the big thing now with folks that have drafted is they're showing us their drafts. Show us your squad. Hashtag show us your squad.
Yeah, show your squad.
Show your squad. That's what it was. Couldn't remember. As always, a lot of ground to cover over the course of the next couple of hours. Going to talk who are we banking on when it comes to winning a fantasy championship. And maybe it's a cool opportunity to tie in auction values a little bit, because when you talk bank, you're actually spending theoretical dollars on some of these players.
Yeah, I think auctions, but also you can tie it into your draft strategy, because I'm banking on somebody and it's a little risky.
We're also going to go team by team a little later on and dig for fantasy gold. We've got the pop quiz as always. Do a recap of our draft weekend. Brian and I were in not one but two separate drafts together in two different leagues. We'll revisit the training camp battles that we hit earlier on in the preseason and update that, and figure out what we learned in preseason week number 3 as well. But first, as always, some headlines of fantasy note and some pretty bad news for some teams, beginning in Dallas, where Cowboys quarterback Tony Romo is out for an undetermined amount of time. Broke a bone in his back, Brian. Ouch.
So this is why we do not draft prior to the games on week 3, because if you drafted Romo, and you just wasted a pick, and it's going to hurt. But if you drafted Dak Prescott in there, you're actually kind of happy.
Yeah, Dak Prescott. We'll see what happens with Dak. We'll be talking about him a little later on in the program as well. Vikings quarterback Teddy Bridgewater also out for the season. A torn ACL and a knee dislocation. It happened at practice earlier this week. They had an ambulance come out to the Winter Park facility there in suburban Minneapolis. Just an ugly scene all around. And for the Vikings to lose Teddy Bridgewater for the season, I mean, this is a team that, honestly, if you're being honest, this is a team that probably could have competed for the Super Bowl this year.
Well, I don't know if I'd go to Super Bowl stretch, but they were going to compete. I'll give you that. And, yeah, those injuries do suck. Non-contact. He just sounded like he just planted and twisted a little funny, and pop goes the weasel, I guess.
Trevor Siemian named the team starter in Denver. Will that mean Mark Sanchez is out?
I think it does. I think Mark Sanchez is going to be looking for plane tickets to Minneapolis.
I have a feeling that is probably going to be the case. At least one of the names that the Vikings will be taking a look at. Bengals wide receiver A.J. Green banged knees with a Jags defensive back in their last preseason game. Apparently he is fine, but a little bit of a scare watching A.J. Green hobble off the field there.
It was indeed. So I typically, watch preseason with a grain of salt, but you see an injury like that, you kind of pucker.
Niners wide receiver Bruce Ellington on a lot of sleeper lists this year, placed on season-ending IR with a torn hamstring. That is painful. Jamal Charles has not regained his role yet as the lead back in Kansas City, according to a report. What's your take on the Kansas City situation? It sounds to me like he's just kind of trending behind in his rehab is basically what I gather.
Yeah, I think so. It's just a little slow coming back. They also probably don't want to rush into it too much. They don't want to throw him out there. He's still got value, so take it easy.
Dolphins wide receiver Devonte Parker day-to-day with an undisclosed injury, likely a hamstring, and he's been dealing with those problems. So something to keep an eye on as we approach week 1 of the regular season here. Ravens wide receiver Brashard Perryman, he'll make his preseason debut tonight. Be our first time to see Brashard Perryman in action, and I'm guessing near 100%, if not there.
And I am actually super excited to see this as somebody who's had him on the radar.
Cardinals wide receiver John Brown, unsure whether he'll be good to go for the week 1 game. He's dealing with some concussion issues, and at this point, I'm dropping him in my ADP, in my positional ranks. Taking a much better look at a guy like Larry Fitzgerald or a guy like Michael Floyd.
Absolutely. When you're looking at concussion injury histories, the more you have, the easier are to get. And they happen from high impact. They happen from bouncing your head on the ground. They happen in a lot of different ways. Or getting hit by a punt that you're not watching out for from behind.
Browns head coach Hugh Jackson says his starters will play in the preseason finale tonight, so look forward to getting a little bit of a glimpse anyway, of probably Robert Griffin III, those 2 running backs there, Isaiah Crowell, Duke Johnson. Probably get a look at Josh Gordon as he has a 4-game suspension to begin the season, and probably rookie Corey Coleman as well. So a lot to take a look at for the Cleveland Browns. When was the last time anybody was excited to watch the Browns?
I'm excited to watch it because it means that's the last Thursday with preseason football. It's literally 7 days away at this point. 6 days. Christmas rules, 5 days. You don't count this day. You don't count the last day. It's almost there.
Packers wide receiver Jordy Nelson returned to practice for the first time since his injury last preseason, and remains to be seen whether or not he'll be effective when he gets back out onto the field. But at least he's back out there, Brian.
That's right. Every little bit counts, regardless of how long. He wasn't going to play that much.
And it's interesting. How important is Jordy Nelson to that Packers offense? Packers head coach Mike McCarthy admits that wide receiver Randall Cobb played injured all year last year, a fitting excuse, if there was any, for why there was so much dysfunction on that Packers offense last year.
Dysfunction, be it they need Jordy Nelson. He makes everybody better.
Help may be on the way, though. Chargers have released wide receiver James Jones. Could he be headed back to Green Bay again?
Lordy.
Actually, he wants to play for the 49ers, he says. So there you have it.
All yours.
Yeah. Had to make room for rookie D lineman Joey Bosa, who signed with the team earlier this week. Not that that's a huge deal. We'll see what happens with him. It's always interesting with rookies, but he was the last of the holdouts, so he has signed now with San Diego. Titans wide receiver Kendall Wright injured his hamstring again on Monday. He'll miss the preseason finale. I'm liking Rashard Matthews more and more in this offense. I'm also taking a good look at Tajay Sharp late in drafts.
Yeah, it's definitely something that you want to be pretty deep in because I think there's hidden value.
Redskins rookie running back Keith Marshall placed on season-ending IR. He's got a damaged UCL in his elbow. That just sounds horribly painful.
I didn't even know what a UCL was.
I found out today. Colts have signed free agent running back Stephen Ridley. Do you think that makes much of a difference?
No, not at all.
Depth move at the very
Just a depth move. I mean, if you got cut from the Lions, it's just a depth move.
And Steelers wide receiver Antonio Brown signed a new deal, so he's now like the highest paid player ever.
Yeah, I think he's getting like $10 million this year, and he set himself up for a fat extension next year.
No question. So we learned a lot of things from week 3 of the preseason, as we normally do. It is perhaps the most important of the preseason weeks. What did we learn exactly? We'll talk about that coming up here in just a little bit and revisit training camp battles as well. You are listening to the 515 Fantasy Football Show, and this is one of our favorite radio stations, 1350 AM, ESPN Radio. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM, ESPN Radio in Des Moines. Andy Hall alongside Brian Eikenberry. Brian, of course, there are several ways our listeners can find us. iTunes, Stitcher, where else?
Facebook, Twitter, 1350 website.
That's ESPNDesMoines.com.
Random Google searches, random Yahoo search, random Bing search for 515 Fantasy Football. If you just type in 515 Fantasy Football in any program connected to the internet, you get us. Even 515 Fantasy, you get us.
Actually, if you just type in 515 in iTunes search under podcasts,
nailed it.
Ours is the first one that pops up.
Bam.
Yep.
That's VIP right there.
By the way, if you are into iTunes or a Stitcher, we appreciate any feedback you want to offer us, any positive reviews. Give us the 5 stars, and we'll be, I don't know, probably knocking on your doorstep with a fruit basket or something.
It's possible, or a strongly message of gratitude.
Yeah, a strong message of gratitude would be good, at the very least. And
fruit basket.
We do appreciate it.
Can't be like pineapple.
No,
it's expensive. Well, it's
plus
expensive.
It's just really weird. It's an awkward fruit.
You get like green grapes.
Green grapes are good because you don't have to do anything with them besides pick them off the,
Well, I'm not picking them off the vine. I mean, they're just going to get green grapes.
Okay.
And how big is this basket anyways?
Well, I don't know, Brian. We'll just have to talk about this later. No pineapple, though. That's for sure. Preseason week 3, what did we learn, Brian? Well, aside from the fact that, and we talked about the major injuries, obviously, but what did we learn in week 3? Well, let's begin with Miami 17, Atlanta 6. Kenny Stills, looking like a viable wide receiver 2 in that Miami offense, does he not?
Yeah, Kenny Stills was never bad. He was never a bad player. He shined when he needed to shine. And he might make that impact in Miami.
Especially if, the problem really in Miami is the fact that Devonte Parker just can't stay healthy. Everybody sort of figured he would be the number 2 by default. Jarvis Landry is going to eat up a ton of targets in Miami, as he always does.
And they didn't have their play calling down last year, so statistics are always kind of skewed. Now they've got a good running back, so they're going to focus and open up some of the coverage.
Arian Foster, Damian Williams, both touchdown runs. Now, we're going to talk about that backfield situation a little bit later, but obviously it's Foster's and nobody else's, and we hope he can stay healthy. It hasn't happened for him in many years.
Please stay healthy.
I know.
Please stay healthy.
On the Atlanta side, Aldrick Robinson, preseason stud. He's probably second place to Dak Prescott.
Yes, I would say so.
You're not drafting him.
No.
New England 19, Carolina 17. Chris Hogan, nice touchdown pass from Tom Brady. Looking like he's going to be the number 2 wide receiver in that offense. Tyler Gaffney, maybe worth sleeper consideration. A young running back in that New England offense. A name to pay close attention to because you just never know with Bill Belichick.
That's right. You do never know. He's been known to throw a couple of wrenches into the gears.
What did we learn from Carolina? Well, aside from the fact that Cam kind of came back down to earth in this game, didn't look very sharp, at least not from my eyes. Devin Funchess, however, is looking like the real deal, Brian. I'm not buying it. I know you're a Kelvin Benjamin guy. I'm not. And so I'm all about Devin Funchess.
Well, now that I didn't get Kelvin Benjamin in any of my drafts, I'm not a Kelvin Benjamin guy anymore.
Well, you were, though. You certainly were flying that flag, but people were taking him ahead of you, and I was going, nice pick, buddy.
Yeah, I'm still a Benjamin guy. I don't like Funches.
Washington 21, Buffalo 16. Cousins, Deshaun Jackson, Sharp, mostly against the Bills' number 2s who, played the majority of the game because the number 1s were only in there for like 2 seconds. And with all the injuries they've had in Buffalo, I don't blame Coach Ryan for doing that. Keith Marshall, of course, got hurt. So, anybody that was thinking he might have the inside track on some carries if anything happened to Matt Jones, that's not happening anymore. Matt Jones, the clear number 1. I'm still not a huge fan of that guy.
But now he's getting even more carries.
I love his opportunity. I just don't believe that there's all that much talent there. He's a huge dude. He looks like Steven Jackson out there. But I don't buy it.
He's just got to lean forward.
I've seen him get blown up. Big guys like that are not meant to be blown up. Tampa 30, Cleveland 13. Winston, Evans hook up for a TD in this one. Martin and Sims were involved, as always. Nice Josh Gordon touchdown in this game. I think he will be a factor once his 4-game suspension is up.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited for it. You do have to kind of bring yourself down to reality. If you're overpaying for him in auctions or anything like that, you got to think about it. I mean, he hasn't played. He is one victory party away from being banned forever for life.
One mistake, man. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
And, to be honest, he looked a lot bulkier than I remember
Yeah, he
him.
might have been getting some good protein shakes. He had nothing to do but train for 2 years.
Either that or he's just really hungry, Brian.
He could be hungry.
Munchies and whatnot. Pittsburgh 27, New Orleans 14. Big Ben, Bell, Brown all looked solid in this game. Tight end Jesse James, a guy to keep an eye on.
Bang, bang.
Fulfilling that old Heath Miller role in the Pittsburgh offense. And since it certainly isn't going to be Ladarius Green, might as well be Jesse James.
Yeah, that's someone I really didn't even consider having a role. And it totally just slipped underneath my radar, and now I wish I would have planned for it.
The one note from the New Orleans side, C.J. Spiller started this game at running back. I don't know what that means. It's the 3rd preseason game. There's got to be something there. I know he had a horrible bust of a season last season in New Orleans, and there's a lot expected of him, both, contributing in the running game and in the passing game.
Well, that would be very bad news for a lot of other people. But like you said, it's the week 3. This is the dress rehearsal. This is the final walkthrough, and maybe there was just a stomach flu floating around that place. Maybe
I tend to think C.J. Spiller is going to be like a really super late round steal.
Would that make people so mad or what?
I guess. Green Bay 21, San Francisco 10. Lacey looked solid again in this one. Cobb, Aberderis both scored touchdowns through the air. Jared Cook, very involved. Jared Cook is buzzworthy this year, which is just odd.
Does it make you sick when you have to talk about him in such positive notes?
I'm not a huge fan of Jared Cook, but in this offense, he could.
Yeah, it's appetizing.
Do you remember Jermichael Finley?
Yeah,
he reminds me of Jermichael Finley out there, big-bodied dude.
Hopefully, he's spending some time on the jugs machine.
We'll see. Carlos Hyde, probably the lone bright spot for San Francisco. He's dealing with some concussion issues, so hopefully he can get over that by the time we get this season started. Kansas City 23, Chicago 7. A weekly reminder that Spencer Ware is the handcuff, both rushing and catching there in that Kansas City offense. No matter where Jamal Charles is at in his rehab, Spencer Ware is the guy.
That's appetizing. Watch for that. It could develop into something soon.
I really don't have anything to say about Chicago. They were terrible. Baltimore 30, Detroit 9. Flacco looked impressive in his return. Forsett has, I think, the inside track despite Terrence West and how good he's looked. Tate and Jones, very 1A, 1B on the Detroit side of the ball. I think we kind of expect that. I'm seeing Marvin Jones really shoot up in ADP. So it'll be interesting as him and Tate get closer and closer to where they're being taken in fantasy drafts, and we'll talk about that coming up here in a little while. Philadelphia 33, Indianapolis 23. DGB making it look easy near the goal line there. Caught himself a touchdown pass. D-backs cannot hang with that guy.
No, I've been saying this for a while. I've been his fan for all the way through last year.
Big night for Sam Bradford. Moncrief. Pokey Moncrief.
Oh, yeah.
Got to catch them all. Led the team in targets. Definitely has Luck's eye. And I'm really a big fan of Dante Moncrief.
Good grief, Moncrief has officially been retired for the Pokemon Creef.
Pokemon Creef. Got to catch them all. New York Giants 21, New York Jets 20. An extremely boring game in which we learned literally nothing from either team, so we move on. Tennessee 27, Oakland 14. That running back tandem there in Tennessee, I am so intrigued by this. So intrigued. They're very 1A, 1B, kind of like Marvin Jones, Golden Tate in the Detroit passing game. Like, I just wonder, like, are they sitting on something real big there in Tennessee?
Well, God, I thought they were just going to run DeMarco Murray into the dirt this year, but now it's just like, I made a boo-boo.
Well, they don't have to. You know, they've got a guy that they can throw in there, and he can perform just as well, and they can keep Murray fresh, and that's what's going to happen, I feel. Carr and Cooper, eat the Titans D alive, is my note from Oakland on this one, and no surprise there. The roommates are lighting it up, so I think that's a sign of things to come this season for sure for Oakland. Denver 17, Los Angeles 9. Virgil Green scored a touchdown in this one. Backfield there in Denver, a little bit of a question mark. I think C.J. Anderson is the guy. And I also think he's a 3-down back, a very rare 3-down workhorse. The problem is I think they drafted this rookie Booker, who they really want to be something. And I think he's got the skill set. I just don't think he's ready. They also have Ronnie Hillman, who's, by the way, no guarantee to make the team.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It is crazy.
Think about Hillman and where he was 2-3 years ago.
Yep.
But who knows? I think C.J. Anderson has the ability. It's just how that team is going to be playing this year.
Both of those teams, Denver, Los Angeles, look pretty solid defensively, and I think we expect both of those teams to be at least top 10 defenses when it's all said and done. Minnesota 23, San Diego 10, first game in the new U.S. Bank Stadium there in Minneapolis. For Minnesota, I think you got to throw nearly everything we learned out, with maybe the exception of Jerick McKinnon, who looked really good. Did you catch any of that game or no?
No, I didn't.
Well, as you know, Adrian Peterson's not even suiting for the game. Well, he is suiting, but he's not playing. But Jerick McKinnon, man, he looks like he's shot out of a cannon. He looks bigger, stronger, more decisive in his cuts. I'm a fan of Jerick McKinnon, and I think you should be targeting him late in drafts. And on the San Diego side, Melvin freaking Gordon.
Yes, baby.
Wow.
Yes, baby.
Wow. Danny Woodhead will be involved. There is no question about it. But Melvin Gordon, if he runs like that.
Well, he had that one play. It was like 32 yards and a touchdown. That was
scamper.
better than he did all last year combined.
Guess who he trained with in the offseason?
Adrian Peterson.
Correct.
Oh, wow, good.
Houston 34, Arizona 24. Osweiler, Fuller both look great in this one. I think Fuller's the inside track for the number 2 wide receiver spot there. David Johnson looks ready for another big year. No surprise to anybody. Finally, Jacksonville 26, Cincinnati 21. Yeldon, he ran very well. He lost a fumble in this one, but he did look good running. Bernard looked like the better running back over Jeremy Hill, in my opinion, in this one. Hill looked very plodding.
I have never liked Jeremy Hill. I've always maintained Gio, and maybe I'll finally be right now.
Oh, I don't think you were, ever really wrong. I think Jeremy Hill had a great first season. Once he had to start mixing with Gio, it was kind of game over for being the number 1 most productive running back in Cincy. At least in my opinion. What's that worth? I don't know. Stick around. We still got a pop quiz on the way. We'll go team by team a little later on and dig for fantasy gold. Who are we banking on, Brian and I? We'll tell you coming up and recap our draft weekends as well. But we're going to revisit the training camp battles and how those got resolved next on the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 ESPN Radio. Thank you for listening, friends. The 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio can also be heard on iTunes and Stitcher and online at espndesmoines.com. Brian Eikenberry sits across from me.
Hey, yo.
I'm Andy Hall. And earlier in the preseason, if you've been following us, you know that one of the early shows, it might have been the first or the second show, I can't remember, we brought up training camp battles. And I have every single one of them here that we talked about, and we have updated to see how right or wrong we were at the time in our prognostications.
Do I get extra credit for the pop quiz from this?
Not at all.
Ah, perfect.
And again, you went 0 for 3 last week. I'd like to remind
With an asterisk. An asterisk.
There's no asterisk there. No. The first training camp battle, Arian Foster, Jay Ajayi in Miami.
Nailed it.
Absolutely no change in this one. Damian Williams may actually kind of be ahead of Jay Ajayi at this point. It kind of looks like it. But either way, this is all Foster until the inevitable happens with him. And we hope it doesn't. We never want to cheer for that sort of thing. But
not when I've got him on my roster.
Yeah, well, hate to say it, Brian, but recent history has not been very kind to Mr. Foster. The New England running back situation, Dion Lewis, LeGarrette Blount. The update here is looking like James White will be the pass catcher with Dion Lewis on PUP. Blount be running the ball an awful lot when the Pats are ahead. We didn't really learn anything. This is kind of old news as far as New England goes.
Yeah, I think I was giving the edge to Blount, and I think I still will, just because by sheer volume of New England always playing from the front ahead, he'll get it.
The Baltimore running back situation, still kind of a mess there. Forsett, Allen, West, Dixon. Now we know Dixon is out he's gone. He's done for the year. Buck Allen, I don't think has a shot here.
No, not at all.
Terrence West, maybe. Justin Forsett, likely to start week 1. I will say that I think West will have a role. I'm just, at this point, even still not sure what that role is going to be.
Well, last year, Forsett was red hot, and then some way the play calling changed, and they were not using Forsett to his ability, and hopefully they learned their lesson.
Back to New England, let's talk wide receivers. Danny Amendola, Chris Hogan for the number 2 spot there. We know Julian Edelman is the number 1. But the update is Chris Hogan, most definitely, I think, is the number 2 wide receiver behind Edelman.
Yeah, is now. I was wrong on that one.
Yeah, we were thinking it would be Amendola, or at least you were.
Yeah, just familiarity.
Then I brought up the fact that Amendola, like a lot of other players in the NFL, are perpetually hurt.
Yeah.
It's always been that way. He was with the Rams. He was always hurt with them, too. Pittsburgh wide receiver situation. Who will be that number 2 across from Antonio Brown, Marcus Wheaton, Sammy Coates? We were dead wrong on this one, Brian. Initially, we were thinking we knew what Wheaton was and that Coates, seemingly had more upside. Fact of the matter is, Wheaton's the guy. Coates, he's got ball security issues.
He's just nervous.
He's a raw talent. He's not running the right routes.
Yeah.
I think Wheaton's the guy, and I don't think there's
newbies.
Any question about it yet. Houston wide receiver situation is a little bit more clear than it was before. Jalen Strong, Will Fuller, Cecil Shorts was the competition. The update is rookie Will Fuller literally sprinted by his competition for the number 2 spot. He's looking great doing it.
Yeah, that was actually pretty surprising. I didn't think he was going to be that much far and above and better than everybody else right off the bat, but he is.
The Tennessee wide receiver situation was Dorial Green-Beckham versus Rashard Matthews.
Solved itself.
It really did. DGB, of course, dealt to Philly. Matthews has actually become the likely number 1 in Tennessee with Kendall Wright's injuries and all the problems he's having. That guy cannot stay healthy.
Yeah, that was looking good, but he just, health issues.
It's like Justin Hunter, too. Same thing. A
Hunter,
lot of talent there.
Hunter was the biggest thing in the whole world, and he can't get there.
In Chicago, the running back situation is definitely locked in at this point. We talked Jeremy Langford, Jordan Howard. The update is this backfield should be all Langford all the time.
It should be. Hopefully you snagged him in some rookie participation. Hopefully you didn't draft him too high, though. I've seen a couple of reaches this weekend, and I just kind of giggled to myself.
I liked Langford a lot this year. John Fox, he's a tough one to figure out, Coach John Fox. But I think if he has the right player, in Matt Forte's absence, now that Forte's been traded away, Langford is definitely the closest thing that the Bears had on roster to what Matt Forte represented. And I don't see that there's anybody, Kadeem Carey or anybody else for that matter, that's really going to be cutting into Langford's opportunities, both rushing and in the passing game.
No, he's that much better, and everybody else sucks.
Well, it's a potentially valuable, very valuable workhorse back. One of the very few that, like I mentioned with C.J. Anderson, is out there for all 3 downs.
Yeah, this could be a guy who's getting 25, 30 carries and a couple of passes.
Little bit of a sleeper there.
Maybe.
And I don't normally go there with teams that I don't like Chicago. I think they're going to be horrible this year. Honestly, I'm not trying to be. Are you laughing because my dog's snoring?
Yeah, I was going to say, you said sleeper and your dog snore on the floor. That was kind of funny.
Nice timing, Ollie. We talked about this on the last show. I'm doing my show in my basement. My dog follows Brian everywhere he goes. And he just happened to be parked right underneath our table here. And I can hear him snoring. I wonder if the mics are picking that up. Training camp battles. That is what we are talking about. New Orleans wide receiver situation. Willie Snead, Michael Thomas. What's your take on this one, Brian? Because I think I definitely have this one figured out.
Man, I was a Snead guy.
Yeah.
He had a good year last year.
1,000 yards.
Showed that he could do it, proven that he could do it. I don't know anymore, but I'm still a Snead guy. I'm still locked on Snead.
I think both are going to be involved.
Well, and that's true. Drew Brees is going to chuck it 45 times a game all year long. He always does.
Brandon Cooks is the guy everybody's targeting. I understand that. He is the most talented receiver that the Saints have. But also out there are some complementary pieces. And I think Michael Thomas is one of those types. And I think Willie Snead is certainly one of those types.
Mm-hmm.
I could see any combination of like a Cooks Snead on the outside with Thomas running down the seam in slot. And let's say what we've heard about Kobe Fleener is true, that it's taking him some time to get up to speed with the Saints offense, and he's not really flashing as of yet. Not like fantasy football experts out there are trying to make you believe. So let's say that they need that guy down the seam, and maybe that could be a Michael Thomas who's got a little bit of size to him.
Absolutely, and it's a good time, when you consider those issues at tight end. It's an opportunity to grab somebody when they're hot for 2 or 3 weeks and trade them off.
A couple more left here. The San Francisco quarterback situation has
get out of town.
Definitely figured itself out.
Are we figuring this out right now on the show, or are we playing our cards?
Here's what we're going to do. I want to go ahead and give you the update to be a professional. Gabbert's the guy. Kaepernick may never play another down in the NFL. And no matter what you think of what he is saying and what he is doing, everybody's got an opinion on it, and that's fine. What I'm going to say is, bottom line will always be what the NFL GM thinks. And according to one thing I just read a couple of days ago,
yeah, that was pretty crazy.
There are literally 0 NFL GMs that would ever take a shot on Colin Kaepernick.
No. So I'm a veteran. We know that. To me, I personally take offense to that.
Okay.
If you sit during the national anthem, because the national anthem is not about these other rights. The national anthem is for the people who came before you to give you that right. So by sitting, you were disrespecting all of that stuff. And he says he's doing it again tonight. Good luck, pal. You're in San Diego. Guess what's in San Diego? The largest Marine Corps base, the largest naval base in the country. Good luck. I can only imagine what's going to happen. I am going to try and find that game streaming online somewhere and watch and see what happens.
I've been perfectly clear about what I feel about this whole thing. I think he's entitled. I think that's what this country's all about. But when you scream oppression and, hey, check out my cool Fidel Castro t-shirt,
yeah, you're confused.
Very confused. Anyway, Gabbert's the guy. Green Bay wide receiver situation, Jeff Janis, Jared Abbrederis, Devonte Adams. Abbrederis making a push here, but likely I think Adams gets that opportunity across from Nelson.
I just like saying Abbrederis. I would love to have that on the show every week.
Abbrederis.
That's exactly what I was thinking in my head.
Abbrederis. There's a song for every single player in the NFL. You could sing the Pokemon theme for Moncrief if you want.
I might do that.
We might have to incorporate that into the show somehow. We still have lots still to come. We're going to incorporate a new segment this week called the 515 Flea Flicker, and it's just kind of like random, don't really know going in or coming out what we're talking about. We're just going to throw stuff at the wall.
There's a lot of mumbo jumbo.
And it's fun because, we can pound you over the head with fantasy football all day long, but, truth of the matter is we have other there's
interests. Always stuff. We always finish a show when we have things we need to talk about, we need to say, so we're making time for it.
And again, we're going to be digging for gold, and we're going to be pop quizzing it up soon, but we're going to go over our draft weekend, recap it next on the 515 Fantasy Football Show. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. You also hear us on iTunes and Stitcher anytime you like, or online at espndesmoines.com. Andy Hall, Brian Eikenberry, welcoming you to our show. Maybe this is the first time you've listened. We appreciate it very much. Hope you're enjoying the content we're providing. Brian and I have over 40 years of fantasy experience, numerous championships won, numerous opponents bested, and we'll do the same for you if you just stick with us throughout the course of the season. And we are getting ready, gearing up, as they say, for the week 1 of the NFL season. Our next show, Brian, will actually be breaking down matchups. How about that?
Looking forward to it. Now looking forward to the extra homework.
Yeah, it is homework, no question. We put a lot into this, so there's a lot of research, and that takes time. And but one thing's for certain, we're putting our best foot forward when we do these shows. So you can count, you can count on that. We did some drafting this past weekend.
Indeed.
A couple of leagues that, it's funny, Brian and I have been friends for a long time, but we've never been in the same league together.
Because we maintained friendship. Now it's war.
Now it's complete war. 2 leagues, not just one, but 2, one of which Brian is the commissioner of. We got together on Saturday afternoon and drafted our teams. I was stuck with the worst team in the league.
Yeah, you were.
I was basically given a team that didn't even have much worth keeping, to be honest with you. My best options for keepers were LaShawn McCoy and Eddie Lacy. So what I did was I kept Eddie Lacy. But I had every intention of dealing him, and I made that clear to everybody in your league, Brian, that I wanted to deal Lacy. And I did.
And you did.
So
it took all of 35 seconds. The draft wasn't even over, and the deal was already done.
And I was talking to multiple people about dealing as well. There was another deal I was trying to work out that was kind of a 2-for-1 type of deal where I was going to get A.J. Green, and that would have been phenomenal. But I'm very happy with what I ended up happening. And if you follow us on Twitter at 515fantasy, if you go down the timeline a little bit, August 27th, my draft in Brian's one-keeper standard league with IDP, I traded my keeper Lacy for Keenan Allen post-draft. So I had the number 1 pick because I had the worst team. And I took David Johnson. And I know you've been thinking all along that Ezekiel Elliott was going to be the pick.
Yeah, I did. I was hoodwinked.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I was very surprised when the owner that had David Johnson last season decided to let him go and not keep him.
Yeah, he had Julio. I mean, he had a tough decision, I think.
If it's me, I know I love Julio, but I'm keeping David Johnson all day long.
Well, he is yours to keep.
And this is how okay. So I want to full disclosure. I'm a big do the opposite /0 running back type of strategy guy.
Until this time.
Until something like this happens where I'm handed the worst team ever, and I just want to try to get the best players I can get. So I've gotten lots of positive feedback from folks, though, that drafted and did do the opposite, 0 running back, and they have amazing teams.
I did like a boss.
You did in this draft, actually. You went wide receiver with your first what? You had Gronk in one of the picks, one of your top 3 picks.
Yeah, I kept Antonio Brown.
Yep.
Then I nailed Gronk, T.Y. Hilton, Larry Fitzgerald, and Alan Hearns.
Oh, that's unbelievable.
So I had 4 straight pass catchers that I drafted.
So your keeper, Antonio Brown.
Yep, nailed it.
Best player in all of fantasy.
So I have the number 1 player in all of fantasy and obviously the number 1 wide receiver.
First round pick, you take Gronk.
So I was picking 7th. I nailed Gronk. Technically, Gronk is at this point, he is the 19th player off the board. I have the number 1 tight end. So now I have the number 1 wide receiver and a number 1 tight end.
Yep. So when it came back to you at that 7 pick again, who did you pick there?
I picked up T.Y. Hilton.
Okay, that's a great pick. So
another number 1 pass catcher.
I had to wait for my next pick. I ended up getting Eric Decker. So now I've got Lacy, David Johnson, Eric Decker. And again, keep in mind, I traded Lacy away for Keenan Allen. So in reality, my first 3 picks are 2 wide receivers and a stud running back.
Correct.
And then, of course, I was on the turn here because I had the worst, team. So I took
snacks.
Jarvis Landry to team up with Eric Decker and Keenan Allen.
Target monsters.
You like it? Okay. Now you kept going.
I kept going. I went Larry Fitzgerald.
Yeah.
And then coming back, I went Alan Hearns.
There was an awful lot of yellow.
People are looking at me like, what are you doing? Are you going to take a running back? And I said, in time.
And what you did actually use, you changed the whole draft because then people just started snatching nothing but wide receivers. By the time the 8th, 9th round came around, there were no wide receivers left.
Yeah.
At all.
I had my pick of the remaining late round running backs.
Crazy.
And by what we know, for the last 5 years, half of the top 10 running backs were taken in the 6th round or later.
So I went C.J. Anderson, Josh Gordon in my next 2 picks. This is where I had to take Gordon. I know it ticked off one of your buddies
Yeah.
because he was hoping to get him.
Yeah, you sniped a couple
Yep.
times. It was funny.
I took Gordon there. And then you came back around, and I think, is this where you finally went running back? Was in the 6th round?
Yeah, 6th round. So I finally pulled the trigger on running backs, and I went Arian Foster.
Yep, and the
So that's-
7th round you came back.
Yeah,
and
came back and got LeGarrette Blount.
See, now you literally did the opposite. That is exactly how you're trained to do it, is you
Yeah.
grab top-notch receivers, tight ends, even if you want to go top-notch quarterback in those first 6 rounds, anything but running back, basically.
Nerves of steel.
It takes a lot of
I
patience.
just literally just sat there, drank my Crown and Coke, just minding my own business. People are whispering at the tables when I'm grabbing the yellow stickers for more receivers. They just think I've lost my mind.
I got to show you a draft that one of our followers, Jaden, sent me, and he did do the opposite /0 running back.
Good job.
You think your draft's good. Wait till I show you his
nailed
team.
it?
He completely nailed it.
Awesome.
He's going to win a championship this year. Now, again, you don't win championships on draft day. I get that. But you put yourself in a really good position.
Yeah.
Okay? So, Josh Gordon, right? So, my next time around, unfortunately, I had to take Matt Jones. He had been sliding down that draft board. I
was
cannot
begging
believe.
for him to come back.
Oh, but I did not want to take him in the worst way. It was so painful. But then there he is in the 7th round. I'm like, I have to
You
take
have
him.
to.
I have to. So I have David Johnson, C.J. Anderson, Matt Jones as my top 3 running backs on my team. What did I do with that 8th round at the turn? Deangelo Williams, who
Yeah.
I've been getting in every single league I'm in. Why? Because he's a top 3 back when Bell gets hurt.
Yeah.
And he's on suspension for the first 3 games, by the way.
Yeah. So you're
Deangelo
guaranteed
Williams.
3 weeks of play, possibly more.
Stud. Okay, so then it comes back to me. I'm sorry, I'm skipping your picks.
No, that's fine.
Because
Whatever.
now it's boring because now you're picking running backs.
Yeah, because I'm awesome.
After Deangelo, I keep loading up on running back. I go Charles Sims, who I want in every league, and I have in a lot of leagues because I'm a huge fan of Charles Sims.
Well, you keep taking those guys.
Then I took Carson Palmer, my
Yeah.
quarterback.
So you just went crazy. So what I did was I went after Blunt, I went Duke Johnson, and then coming back to me again, I was still able to get Justin Forsett at pick number 9. So again,
That's huge value for him, by the way.
huge.
Huge.
So I have a starting running back I grabbed in the 9th round.
Big fan. We should probably transition over to the other league that you and I share.
Ooh,
and that's,
Rookosaurus Rex.
that's the good old Dynasty auction that we're a part of. And we did our rookie draft this past weekend.
Indeed.
3 rounds. You had 3 picks, or did you have more than that?
I had 3 picks.
Okay. One
I
each
was-
round, right?
1 each round. Number 1 in each round. It's not a snake draft, so it starts over like the real NFL draft, picking rookies.
You had been salivating over Ezekiel Elliott. We all knew it was coming.
I teased a lot of league mates. I had zero intention of ever trading that pick away, but I made everybody well known that I was available to trade it.
I had the 8th pick, which was tough because I knew at that point I wasn't going to get my hands on Dak Prescott. I wasn't going to get my hands on any of the top 2 running backs or the top 3 receivers. So at that point, I'm going, well, what do I do here? And I had a choice. I could take like a Josh Doxson, who probably isn't going to factor in much this year in Washington, but in coming years, he's going to be pretty great, I think. Tyler Boyd, who might actually get some time in Cincinnati this year. Marvin Lewis, the coach there, doesn't necessarily like playing rookies. He likes bringing them along much slower. But if Tyler Boyd's got the goods, he's got the goods. He's going to play. But what I did here is I reached for one of my sleepers of the year, and that is Oakland running back Deandre Washington. Yeah, I'll tell you something. If anything happens to Latavius Murray, this is going to be DeAndre Washington's team. I'm convinced. I don't think there's anybody else there. So I took DeAndre Washington with that 8th pick.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where you're not begging for an injury, but you're just thinking about it.
So you in the 2nd round, who'd you take?
Kenneth Dixon, Baltimore running
the
back.
The fact that he was still there is crazy. I know he's hurt and he's not gonna make an impact this year.
Not this year,
But
but
you
I've
get
got
a
him locked up for 3.
3 years and super cheap. 3rd round, who'd you take?
Paul Perkins, running back, New York Giants.
Another situation where it's like, wow, how was he still there? Crazy. I mean, think about it. If Rashad Jennings gets hurt, I mean, Paul Perkins probably steps in.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Wow. I was a little ticked off with I didn't have a second-round pick. I did have a third-round pick, and I thought for sure I was going to be able to grab Aguayo, the kicker from Tampa.
Whoops.
And get a free kicker for, cheap. And somebody took him right in front of me. So I took Farrell Cooper, wide receiver, L.A. Rams. Boring. That is a nice little recap of what Brian and I were up to this past weekend. It's a lot of fun.
Busy.
It's like Christmas. I love draft weekend. I want you to stick around, though, because it's going to get interesting here shortly as I unveil 3 very tough fantasy football questions upon Brian, who's not seen or heard of these questions. No way to prepare for them. The pop quiz is on deck. 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Andy Hall. That is Brian Eikenberry. Number of ways that you can catch this show on a weekly basis on the air at 1350 AM ESPN Radio in Des Moines and via iTunes and Stitcher and the ESPNDesMoines.com website where you can listen anytime you like.
Anytime.
We really like it when you listen. We like it even better when you interact with us. So make sure you like us on Facebook, 515 Fantasy Football. Follow us on Twitter at 515 Fantasy. I'm at Andy Hall Radio. He is at IkeFFB. That's IKEFFB.
Bam.
It is time.
It has come. 3-0. Here we go. Let's do this.
You've done it once over the course of this show, ever, and it was 2 weeks ago. And I vow to never let that happen again.
That was the only time you couldn't screw me out of it.
For those of you that are new to the program, the Pop Quiz, 3 of the toughest questions fantasy football has at the moment. And I present them to Brian. And Brian has no way of knowing what I'm going to ask. So this is kind of off the top of your head responding. And no matter what Brian answers, the deal is I come back and give everybody the right answer afterwards.
You have the opportunity to weigh in on social media. Back me up here. I appreciate it.
Nobody's done it yet.
Nobody. That tells me a lot about my stability on this show.
Or it could just be that, I've been on the radio in this town for a little while and people tend to trust me before they do some other guy.
Or I don't control the mailbox and all of my love letters are hidden in a shoebox.
Do I have to do the Jesse Ventura conspiracy theory voice again? Do I have to do it? I will do it.
Carry on, Mr. Hall.
Question number 1 in the pop quiz. Tony Romo is out.
True. Nailed it.
Rookie Dak Prescott is in. Last year, the average starting NFL quarterback threw for 3,486 yards and 23 touchdowns. Will Dak finish above or below these numbers that represented fantasy's number 16 quarterback in 2015?
I will go knee-jerk and say yes, because he actually does have a pretty good supporting cast.
What is the yes?
Yes, he will finish in the top 16.
Above or below these numbers?
Above.
Okay, so the answer for you is above.
Yes.
Explain.
I just did. I think he has good supporting cast. He's got a good offensive line that's going to be able to give him time to make decisions. He's shown in the preseason that he is capable of handling the NFL speed. So I am confident that he'll beat out 16 people.
The all-time NFL record for rookie quarterbacks is 26 passing scores, set by Peyton Manning in 1998. Russell Wilson also did it in 2012. Only 3 other rookie quarterbacks in the modern era reached 20 passing touchdowns.
Really?
Cam Newton, Andy Dalton, and one Daniel Constantine Marino Jr.
Oh, Lord almighty.
As great as he looked in the preseason, particularly against Seattle's ones last week, one may think this is a no-brainer, right? Wrong. Even if you put up great touchdown numbers, rookies are notorious for massive turnover numbers if they can even stay healthy. The answer is no here.
Whatever. Mark this one down on your calendars, folks. I'm going to prove Mr. Hall wrong again.
Okay. You make sure and make a note of this, by the way. So when the season's over, we have Dak Prescott, and we have a pretty good chunk of data
and
to look at.
RG3.
Well, the RG3 thing is already in the books.
Yeah.
He's definitely going to be a quarterback number 2 this year.
Oh.
Like a number, he'll be a QB2 for your fantasy squad.
Nope.
Count on it. He's a guy you can get with your very last pick, and he could be a solid backup quarterback on your fantasy team. That's not even part of this pop quiz. This is, though, question number 2. Who is the most important handcuff to own in 2016? There is a definitive answer to this question?
The most important, Deangelo Williams. That's my answer, because if you draft, technically this is a handcuff. You've got a guy so your handcuff is already starting 3 games and will do just fine, as he's already proven to. Plus, he's behind a guy who's already been injured before. Mm-hmm. So to me, that is the most important handcuff.
Deangelo Williams, who will be Pittsburgh's workhorse back for at least the first 3 games of the regular season, finished 3rd among running backs in half PPR leagues last year with 212.5 fantasy points. Bell, who's on pace to return to the Steelers' starting lineup come Week 4, is no guarantee to stay healthy all year. He tore his MCL in Week 9 of last year, missed time in late 2014 as well due to a hyperextension. Williams is a flat-out stud if and when Bell misses time. Brian got it right.
Nailed it. 2
Question.
for 2.
All right, no. You're 1 for 2. Let's not try to puff our chest any more than you can down here. Question number 3. Teddy Bridgewater threw for only 14 touchdowns in 2015. Now that Teddy is out for the season, and quite possibly more, the over-under for team touchdown passes this season is 10. Are there any Vikings pass catchers worth taking in non-PPR leagues?
So I will expose my history knowledge here on you one Sean Hill.
So good.
I will say yes. Wait. What was the question again?
Again, it wasn't about the number, Brian.
Yeah, no. It was.
The number is not in dispute here.
I will say no. There is no wide receiver Vikings worth taking anymore in the draft just because of familiarity. However,
you have some Sean Hill experience.
I do have some Sean Hill experience, and that's why he's still a backup in the league, because he is capable, he manages the game, and he's better than Alex Smith. The guy should be starting in Kansas City, for crying out loud. But hey, he has been a career backup, and he has shown he can learn a playbook, come in, make smart decisions, and carry on. I actually think the Vikings may be in a better spot, but I'm not willing to go on the record for it.
So your answer is
no wide receiver on the Vikings is worth drafting.
You should have paid closer attention to the question. The question was, are there any Vikings pass catchers worth taking in non-PPR leagues?
No.
You said wide receivers. I said pass catchers.
Oh, I don't even think Rudolph is either.
The answer is Jerick McKinnon.
Oh, whatever.
Primary backup to Adrian Peterson. Will benefit from a backup quarterback needing to check down to an outlet like McKinnon, who has the ability to take any one touch to the house. I'm not bothering with Laquan Treadwell outside of dynasty leagues. I like Stephon Diggs a lot, but his ceiling is now extremely limited. And, I mean, Charles Johnson, I'm not messing with that. Any of the other pass catchers there, Kyle Rudolph even, who had a nice touchdown last week. Jerick McKinnon is a pass-catching back. Adrian Peterson is not. He will come out of the game, and McKinnon will be there.
No. So, to prove you wrong, what is your number that McKinnon has to be to prove him as a worthy draft pick?
What do you mean by that?
So, his end-of-the-season numbers, to prove you're right on that question, what does his end-of-the-year stats have to be?
Well, it's tough because there's nobody else to compare his role to. If you want to compare a standard pass-catching role, you'd put him in the likes of like a Theo Riddick or a Duke Johnson or somebody like that. But the problem with that is that none of those teams have anything near an Adrian Peterson. So basically what I'm trying to say here is if it's like a third and medium, third and long situation, McKinnon's going to be the guy in the backfield probably. And they're most likely going to get him involved in the short passing game, whether it be screens, quick dumps.
I think you quick dumps.
I had to bring that up.
That's my favorite line.
Those of you that
year.
go back to last year with us, that you had a little snicker there.
I was able to make a radio professional completely lose composure on the air. It was beautiful.
That was the one that put me over the top.
That was it. You could 10 minutes later you're still giggling about it.
I wish you would have been in the room with me at the time because we were doing that show over Google Hangouts, I think, or something like that. So he was in a completely separate location from me. And I'm trying to fight my way through this segment and it's just not working. And then I compose myself and I'm like, okay, come on, you're a professional, knock this off, and I was actually saying that on the air. I was like, all right, knock it off. Stop this. You can can actually go back on iTunes and listen to that episode. I'm not even sure which one it was, to be honest with you, but yeah, it was a good time. I think you called it Quick Dumps, didn't you? Something like that. The title of the show.
Maybe. I don't know. I'll have to go back and check.
I think you incorporated it. Anyway, you were saying you were wondering about McKinnon and what kind of numbers he needs.
I think you just kind of hosed me over on the question.
No, I think you weren't paying close enough attention. You assumed I was talking about wide receivers when in fact I was talking about anybody who can catch a pass.
So then why
Minnesota.
is he not on your roster then? I'm looking
here. Jerick McKinnon?
Yeah.
I have him in one of my leagues, the one where I also own Adrian Peterson. But here's the thing. McKinnon is not necessarily the guy that's going to step in and be a workhorse if Peterson ever goes down or has some sort of issue. That's going to be Matt Asiata. I know the Vikings.
Well, social media, please let me know if you believe that one Mr. Eikenberry is correct. Thank you.
You just weren't paying close enough attention.
3 for 3,
You're
nailed
all
it.
Bitter.
Next.
So bitter.
Next segment.
You went 1 for 3 in that. And the only one you got right was kind of a gimme, to be honest with you.
Oh, Lord.
If you didn't answer Deangelo Williams, I was going to slap you upside the head.
That's abuse.
That's true. But if nobody saw it, it didn't really happen.
But if they heard it.
It's theater of the mind, Brian. I could go like this. That sounds like I just smacked you upside the head.
Now I have a mark.
Hey, don't you backtalk me.
That's 2.
If my dog was here right now, he went out, but
he would be protecting me.
Oh, he would attack me. No question. Stick around before it gets real ugly. Who are we banking on? Brian and I will tell you. Also go team by team with and mine for some fantasy gold coming up as well. That's the next segment.
Not in your nose.
Of the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. You are listening to the 515 Fantasy Football Show, and we do appreciate it on 1350 AM ESPN Radio, on iTunes, on Stitcher, online at ESPNDesMoines.com. That's Brian Eikenberry.
Woof.
I'm Andy Hall. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts for listening to our little fantasy football show. We'd like to think we give you some pretty good info, some good intel. How about that?
Absolutely.
I mean, going back to last year, I can honestly say I'm taking full ownership of Gary Barnidge.
Yeah, that was a huge gold mine. We're still touting that one because it saved people's seasons. Single-handedly, well before everybody else. We make the gutsy calls. We know what we're talking about. Just let us help you out a little bit.
I hear these loudmouth yahoos that do fantasy shows elsewhere.
On Yahoo?
And they probably get paid a lot of money to do it. And, we do it because we love it. We're not necessarily getting paid for this. But that's beside the point. When we land something like a Gary Barnidge and we can claim ownership of that, when I try to hear somebody else, like, oh, we were way ahead of the curve on that. No, you weren't.
We have archived data.
We do. It's literally on tape. So we take great pride in things like that, and we hope to, score big on several of these this year as well. We are glad you are along for the ride. This next segment here, we're going to go team by team and dig for fantasy gold, Brian. I'm going to go through each NFL team, and I want you to pick one fantasy-relevant player, not necessarily the big stud that everybody wants, but a guy that you think has, like, some real value, and you will be targeting in fantasy draft situations.
This is all out of my head.
Ready? We begin with the 49ers. This is a tough one. Who would you pick from the 49ers?
Pass? Is that an option?
No. You're digging for gold here, remember?
Oh.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. Carlos Hyde is my answer.
Well, I thought you weren't supposed to take the obvious one.
Sometimes you have to.
Well, that's not
You're
fair.
not going to go Quentin Patton. You don't know what he's capable of. There's not enough data to suggest
I'll
that
take
Quentin
Hyde
Patton.
because that was going to be my
You could take a Vance McDonald.
I wasn't trying to take the obvious one. I thought this was going to be hard. Like
It is going to be eventually. But it's not you're not right or wrong. This is just, these are guys that you are targeting because you see value in them. And again, I don't want to get into the whole, we're picking the studs every single time.
Okay.
Some of them you can pick, but especially when they are the clear cut, Like, I'm going to tell you right now, when we get to the Vikings, Adrian Peterson's the guy, period. So that's okay.
I hope so.
Yeah. All right, so I go Carlos Hyde. Who are you digging for gold with?
That's going to be Carlos Hyde. There's nobody else I would ever own on a Niners roster,
How about the Bears?
Bears? I would go Langford because you probably had really good value on him drafting him in the later rounds of your draft.
As we talked about a bit ago in recapping our weekend of drafts, Langford is a guy that you're able to get at a value more often than not. I totally agree on that one. The Bengals.
I would say, God.
Who were you just trying to get in our auction?
I was trying to get Gio because
that's right.
Gio's the gold mine there, I think.
He is. I agree with you completely. You could pick A.J. Green, sure. That's a boring pick, though.
I was trying not to pick A.J. Green.
Yeah, Giovanni Bernard is the guy here, for
Tyler
sure.
Boyd, though.
Yeah, I mean, we just don't know yet, though. I mean, it's always a risk with these rookies. But
it's a jackpot, though.
But again, I mentioned this in the last segment, like Marvin Lewis, the coach there, he does not like to play rookies if he doesn't have to. So I don't know what's going to happen there. But Bernard, I think, is the answer anyway. How about the Bills?
Sammy Watkins is really probably, or Tyrod Taylor. I mean,
thank you. I'm glad you brought him up.
Tyrod, he showed really good flashes last year, and somebody that is undrafted. So that's one of those backups that you can pick up for nothing, just in case.
He could be a borderline quarterback one this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Honestly, in fantasy circles, Tyrod Taylor's the answer for me here for sure. How about the Broncos? It's an interesting year for Denver this year.
Yeah, it's not wide receiver bound. I don't think the gold's there. It's C.J. Anderson, obviously.
Yep, Anderson's the answer.
That's the only one you can really draft with confidence. Even Demaryius Thomas, I was watching people take him way too early.
Yeah, but he is going to get a lot of targets.
Screens.
I'll give him that. Yeah, that one screen, take it to the house. How about the Browns?
I think Duke Johnson is the gold mine here.
That's interesting. I say Isaiah Crowell.
Really?
Why do you say Duke Johnson? Are you assuming half PPR or what?
No, I just think he's the better ball player. I really do. I just think he is the better ball player. And I think that's going to play out this year. I drafted with confidence on Duke Johnson, him being the better football player. And I think that's what Cleveland needs. I think that's what they're doing in their front office. I think that's how they're changing their mindset is we need football players.
To me, he's a sheer PPR angle.
Yeah.
I mean, I will not take him in standard leagues. Crowell is a guy that you're getting super late in drafts right now. Wherever you're taking Forsett, you mentioned earlier, like, what was that, like the 11th round or something? Yeah, so it's right around there where Isaiah Crowell's going as well. And I think that's undervalued for him. So I think he's my gold mine. The Buccaneers. This should be an easy one to. If you could probably pick mine.
Well, you're probably going to say Charles Sims.
I absolutely am saying Charles Sims.
But I will say Jameis Winston.
Okay, that's an interesting answer.
As much as I hate the Bucs and as much as I hated Jameis Winston, you know what? It's there. It's there.
He's stepping it up.
If his receivers caught just 25% more of the passes he threw, Mike Evans dropped more than he caught last year.
It's true.
That was a huge game changer, literally game changer for Jameis Winston and his stats.
I am trying to get Charles Sims wherever I can get him because if something happens to Doug Martin, and things have happened to Doug Martin before, Charles Sims is stepping right in.
And there's nobody else behind him.
Role, and there is nobody behind him. You're right.
Yep.
So, the Cardinals. Lot of good choices here. You cannot get this one wrong. Don't say Daniel Fells.
I was going to say Carson Palmer because I didn't want to go with the easy answer, but Carson Palmer is one that a lot of people are overlooking. I believe a lot of people, we had a draft where people paid attention, but they're either overdrafting him or ignoring him. There's no right where I feel is right to take him. So that's for me because I see people passing him up and take other people. And it's just like, what are you doing, man?
He was a top 5 fantasy quarterback last year, no matter what scoring system you're in. So, again, yeah, you're absolutely correct. You could have picked anybody from the Cardinals, I think. You would have been right. How about the Chargers?
We
got to hustle this up.
I think Melvin Gordon. Yeah, we didn't think this one out. This is like 15 seconds.
Gordon?
Yeah, Gordon.
I go with Woodhead.
Sure.
And because I think he's valuable even in non-PPR leagues because he's the goal line guy like we've talked about, like as strange as it sounds.
Yeah, but I think Gordon's up to speed on the NFL speed.
You could be very well correct on that. For the Chiefs, anybody on the Chiefs?
No.
Spencer Ware.
Whatever.
Colts?
I want to say Gord just because, but T.Y. Hilton is a gold mine there.
Pokemon Creef. I'm going with Dante Moncrief. How about the Cowboys? Where's the fantasy gold?
Ezekiel Elliott.
Actually, I think it's Alfred Morris.
No.
How many rookie running backs can step right in and go a whole season without getting hurt or anything else happening? If that ever
This
happens,
guy will.
if something happens to Elliott, it's all Morris. And behind that offensive line, we saw what McFadden did last year. Morris is a better back than McFadden is.
Yeah, but nothing's happened to Elliott.
All right.
Positive vibes here.
Dolphins?
Give me Arian Foster all day.
Sure. I like Jarvis Landry.
Okay.
Target monster. Eagles?
Pass.
Ryan Matthews, I think.
Even that,
He's an injury risk, but you know what? The guy averages like 6 yards a carry during his career.
Yeah.
That's good. Falcons?
Julio all day.
Yeah, I'm going with Freeman here.
Sure.
I like Freeman a lot. Giants?
OBJ.
Easy. Jaguars?
See, I like Hearns. I'm a Hearns guy.
Yeah. And double-digit touchdowns last year. You can't argue with that. But Allen Robinson, man. Wow.
Well, I'm hoping they roll more towards Robinson and give Hearns a little bit more freedom.
It could very well be. The Jets?
I'll go with Decker on this one.
I like that answer. I'm going Bilal Powell, of course, but he's one of my favorite sleepers of the year. Lions?
Everybody.
Uh-huh. Who specifically?
Biggest gold mine is going to be Stafford here.
Okay. Yeah. We've talked about him.
He's getting back up to the top this year. Absolutely.
Considering how he wrapped up last year. I think that Jim Bob Cooter has a lot to do with that, doesn't he?
Yep.
Yep.
You betcha.
Yep. I like that a lot. I actually went Theo Riddick here. I might change my answer, though, to Stafford.
He's going to be awesome.
I like
super excited.
Riddick, though, because I don't think anybody caught more passes than Riddick besides maybe Woodhead last year out of the backfield. So, Packers?
I am the Lacey fan. You know this.
No way.
I'm a big Lacey
Randall
fan.
Cobb.
Big Lacey fan.
Cobb's going to have a bounce back.
People
He's
were trying
healthy.
to dump Lacey.
Like me?
Like you.
Oh, I can't stand the guy. Panthers?
Give me Jonathan Stewart on this one, to be honest with you.
Yeah, always underrated, right?
Yeah.
Always. Raiders.
I don't want to pick Carr because I already picked a quarter, but Amari Cooper's just being a stud right now.
Fantasy gold here is DeAndre Washington.
Oh, Lord.
That's a biased answer because I think he's a huge sleeper of mine, and I have him now. I got a 3-year rookie contract with him, so something's bound to happen. The Rams.
Pass.
It's got to be Gurley.
It's got to be Gurley, but duh.
Ravens.
So here's the thing. Flacco's going to be a stud.
Flacco's my guy.
Flacco's going to be a stud.
I dig Flacco.
Yep.
Yeah, I am with you on this. Redskins.
Deshaun Jackson.
I also put Deshaun Jackson. Saints.
Drew Brees is the only. Here's the thing.
I say Snead. I think Snead can take a step up from what he did last year.
I think Drew Brees will take a step up from what he did last year.
No argument. Seahawks?
No.
Fantasy
gold, no.
Doug Baldwin?
Yeah, I was going to say Lockett.
Okay. Well, if you believe that hype, I don't believe it. I think Richardson will be more productive. There you go.
We'll see.
Steelers?
Well, duh.
Brown. Texans?
I am going to say, I want to say Brock Osweiler, but
Lamar Miller.
Yeah.
Titans?
I think Mariota is going to be a stud.
I put Rashard Matthews. And the Vikings, Adrian Peterson.
Yeah.
There you have it. Stick around. We're going to tell you who we're banking on. Who are Brian and I banking on at the key positions?
Yes.
Coming up here in just a bit on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. The 515 Fantasy Football Show, heard on 1350 AM ESPN Radio in Des Moines, also on iTunes and Stitcher, and via the ESPNDesMoines.com website as well, where you can find all kinds of great content and will throughout the course of the regular season, which, Brian, I love to remind you, begins next week.
Yes, please. Cannot wait.
As much as I love drafting, and I do love drafting, it's my favorite part, I think, of all of fantasy football. But, boy, sitting there week 1, NFL Red Zone on the television.
Remember we talked about this. It's like the draft is Christmas and actually unwrapping the presents, and then the rest of the NFL season is playing with those presents.
Oh, I'm so in love with this time of year in general.
Yes.
They should. It's the most wonderful time of the year.
And
it's not Christmas.
Instead of like mistletoe and all that, you have like burning leaves and smell.
What are we spending money on this time of year?
Yeah.
Bad
Football
food.
Stuff.
Bad food.
Yeah.
Bad for you. adult beverages,
and cable network packages.
brown liquids. Stuff
Yes.
for us, because
That's
this
right.
is a selfish time of year.
And extra babysitters and
I love
more
it.
spending cash for the wives.
Speaking of cash, who are we banking on?
Oh, yeah.
This is going to be, this will be interesting because I don't really have anything planned for this segment. I just want to let everybody know, basically at the key positions, these are guys I am absolutely 100% counting on in my own leagues. And I want you to do the same, Brian.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll break this all down. And, in case you haven't drafted yet, or maybe, you have an opportunity to make a play for some guys through auction or however you do it with your league. This is the sort of last call before we begin the regular season.
Clinking the cups. I didn't even talk.
Clinking the clups, whatever that means.
Clippity clops.
Clippity clops, yeah. Let's begin at the quarterback position, Brian. Feel free to, you don't have to really limit yourself here. You can name any number of quarterbacks you really, really like, but who are you banking on in your leagues?
So for me, I played the homer big time this year, and I went after Stafford every chance I got because looking back, when they made that OC change halfway through last year, nobody played the quarterback position better than Matt Stafford did over the last 8 games. And now they are running a no-huddle, up-tempo offense with pass-catching running backs, and they have the ability for 3 wide receiver sets all day long. So get ready, strap in. He might be pushing 45 and 40 again.
I've basically told everybody already what I am doing in at least one of my leagues. I own Tom Brady, and you're not going to have Tom Brady for the first 4 weeks of the regular season. So my job then at that point was to figure out exactly who had the most juicy schedule out of anybody and the best potential to properly fill the shoes of Tom while he was on suspension. And the answer I came up with was Joe Flacco.
Yep.
Flacco's got an amazingly good weeks 1 through 4. I really like his matchups a lot, and contrary to what people think of that Baltimore receiving core, it's not the most exciting. There are guys, though, that can get the job done.
Yeah, so let's look at that. You got Brashard Perriman, who's nobody's seen play, who was a big deal before he got injured. Mike Wallace's career resurrection might be upon us.
I don't buy it.
I do. And Kamar Aiken, which was a big deal last year, plus a pass-catching 4 set. What's not to like, especially finding out that his secondary defenses are weak for the first 4 weeks.
You didn't even bring up Steve Smith.
Who?
Oh, come on, Brian. Really?
Yeah, we're doing this again.
Wow. Steve Smith, come on. The angry man.
Moved on.
Okay, well, he's yet another weapon.
He is the
at
kiss.
Flacco's disposal.
Yeah, he is the kiss of the NFL. He's like out of retirement, and then he just comes back for another reunion tour, and another reunion tour, and another reunion tour.
I do love Kamar Aiken. He is a sleeper of mine. 75 receptions, 944 yards, and 5 touchdowns last season. Wallace, I'm not entirely thrilled with. But I think Steve Smith and Brashard Perriman, I think is going to be very, very interesting and very fun to watch.
I do.
So there you have it. There's my answer at the quarterback position.
Okay.
I like both of our answers. I think if you can target Stafford in the 10th, 11th round, I think you're doing pretty good.
Very good.
There you go. Running back position. Who you banking on?
Arian Foster.
Oh, boy.
I am. I am. If Arian Foster stays healthy, I am going to win our league. Guaranteed. Because I'm locked and loaded at all of the other positions. Undeniably locked and loaded. Running back is my shaky spot. If Arian Foster is healthy, fingers, toes, everything crossed, it is jackpot central, baby. I will be mowing down high scorer wins. I will be just collecting dollar bills all the way.
Maybe not as many dollar bills as I will have with Deangelo Williams on most of my teams.
No.
I'm banking on Deangelo Williams first and foremost. Not my only answer at the running back position, but I think the most crucial, because any number of things could happen here. We know that he's got the first 3 games, and we know what he did with the first, 2 games last year?
2 games last year.
Yep. But then once Bell went down with injury, week 9, Williams, again, putting up stud numbers, finished, pretty much top 3 last year?
Yeah,
behind
totally.
Freeman and Peterson.
Because he was back a little bit, but then if you took his average over those games he was out, he was clear and above everybody else.
In half PPR leagues, he only finished behind Freeman and Peterson.
Yeah.
Wow. So Deangelo's a guy I have gotten on most of my teams.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though I don't own any Le'Veon Bell.
That's even better.
I own no
That's
Le'Veon
even
Bell.
better.
My other bank, who am I banking on? I'm banking on one of the following to pan out and blow up like I think they could this year, but it takes some doing to get there. Charles Sims, Bilal Powell, Danny Woodhead, Duke Johnson, Theo Riddick. I have those guys in any number of leagues.
Sure, as do I.
Sims I have in almost every league that I am in. Woodhead I own in a couple places. Powell I own everywhere. So basically Sims and Powell, kind of what it comes down to for me. And I think there's a ton of potential there between even just those 2 players. And that's kind of what I'm banking on for my season to succeed this year. Because I own some studs here and there. I own David Johnson here. I own Adrian Peterson there.
It's always nice when you already have the backup on your roster when disaster strikes. Because everyone heads out to that waiver wire, types it in, sees your team name, and they just go, ugh.
Yeah.
And then the trades start to roll in. And if you're already stacked, you're going to get stacked even more. And you're still going to win because that's part of the banking on strategy. If it happens, that previous owner is probably going to come knocking and say, hey, what's it going to take to get? Mm-hmm. You know what it's going to take to get to save your season, pal?
Yeah.
It's going to probably take your number 1 or number 2 wide receiver to save your season, pal.
Yeah. I mean, I might be in the midst of trying to work out some deals in one of my leagues.
I'm sabotaging.
You're not going to sabotage. I think he's got his eye on who I've got, and I think I've had my eye on who he's got. And if I have the opportunity to get the number 1 and arguably number 2 wide receiver.
It's like they've met on Match.com or something.
On both. If I could get Brown and Beckham on the same team.
Garbage.
Wow.
Blasphemy.
Wow. That would be amazing. Anyway, pass catchers. Anybody in particular you're banking on?
Yeah, I need my wide receiver 3 to really come alive, and that's Larry Fitzgerald. Everyone's like, oh, he's old. It's just another year. Just another year of being Larry Fitz-freaking-Gerald. That's just another year. So I'll take it.
Sure.
If he can put up numbers like he always has, that's going to be awesome. If you get really good production out of your wide receiver 3, awesome. Gold mine. Jackpot.
I think I'm banking on guys like Eric Decker and Jarvis Landry, sort of some of these mid-tier wide receivers.
Sure.
I didn't get as many opportunities this year to employ my favorite strategy that do the opposite zero running back thing that we've talked about so extensively on this show, and a lot of our listeners have already tried out and taken advantage of, and they have amazing teams. This year, for whatever reason, I just wasn't able to take advantage of that situation. I had to do things a little bit differently. I did the opposite of the opposite, essentially.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to take the best available.
So what I ended up with was, in an auction league, arguably overspending for somebody like Antonio Brown, who I want on my team. So I went out and I bought him. I had all that cap money, so I bought him off the guy who was trying to tag him. But who am I really banking on? It's sort of like that mid-tier that I was able to get my hands on. It was the Eric Deckers, the Jarvis Landrys of the world. I need those guys to at least match the sort of production they were able to put up last year. And God willing, Brian, it's all going to work out.
You bet.
We only have one segment left. It's a brand new segment we're calling the 515 Flea Flicker.
Flea Flicker.
And with a flea flicker, you never know what you're going to get.
That's right. You're just going to pass it around.
It's kind of the idea here. And maybe Brian is wanting to get back at me for the pop quizzes that I've always been springing on him. He's going to spring something on me momentarily. I don't know exactly what it is, but
me neither.
We're going to find out. Oh, great. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show, prepared as always on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. Final segment of this 515 Fantasy Football Show. Andy Hall, Brian Eikenberry. Heard as always on 1350 AM ESPN Radio in Des Moines, also on iTunes, Stitcher, and through the ESPN Des Moines website as well, espndesmoines.com.
Everywhere, folks. We're everywhere.
Yeah, you can't run away.
I'm grabbing the mic like a rock star
Totally
now.
creepy.
I'm ready for this.
Oh, wow.
Flea
Okay.
flicker.
So the very first 515 flea flicker, it came to our attention that, we talk a lot of fantasy. 2 hours, a long time to talk fantasy. It's nice to stretch out and maybe talk about some other things. So flea flicker is giving us an opportunity, whether it's to vent or to discuss or, butt heads some more, because that's always fun.
Yeah.
I don't know what Brian has in store for us this week. I'm just going to kind of wing it.
So first, I would like to just ponder the thought process of, and it happens in society, that NFL players, because this has fantasy impact, NFL players are having to prove their innocence versus someone else proving them guilty. See Al Jazeera report. A external news source, not even in this country, makes a claim of PED use with no evidence. And it was to the point where players were going to get suspended if they didn't report to the NFL for questioning, just because somebody said so with no evidence. That's a pretty big deal, and that's pretty important, because what if this happens mid-season and those claims are being made and your receiver's like, no, I'm not going to go interview, and then all of a sudden they just suspend you?
This is a tough topic, buddy. I was hoping we were going to talk about the new injury report or something.
Hey, that's your turn.
Maybe next time we'll talk about how they're designating injuries now, because that's news in the NFL. There is no more probable to get you caught up to speed.
That's tricky.
I think it sucks. That's just, I think most fantasy people like myself and like you think it sucks. This is tricky because you're right. No, I know. I'm just thinking. It's like, if I'm in their position, if I'm in their shoes, and I'm called to the table to defend my honor, essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, you know how hard you work. You're an NFL player. You're in the training room. You're in the weight room. You're conditioning nonstop and lifting and making your body stronger. And you're doing all the right things. You're eating right. You're sleeping right. It's a lot of hard work. And anybody comes out of the woodwork and decides to throw an accusation out. And it has to be taken seriously. Why? I don't know.
Because they said the right names. They picked people and linked them to one hot person. And they said, well, the only way they could be linked together is this is true.
So that's the deal.
So it makes me think of back in the Gulf War, one tactic of propaganda they used to use was they would make statements about X person at home with your wife. But they would say, Bart Simpson is home with your wife. And it's just like, you guys are so idiots. So it was more comical.
Bart Simpson.
Because they didn't realize Bart Simpson was a cartoon.
Oh, I see.
So it was just propaganda. It was uneducated propaganda. And it was just to get you off kilter.
Fortunately, you saw through it.
Fortunately, people, troopers were smart enough to say, I don't think so, actually, as a matter of fact. But it's funny, and I think that's the way the Al Jazeera is. So that was my flea flicker, the first one of the show. Al Jazeera, go.
Wow. I guess
report. Injury
yeah,
report.
for me, I just wanted to talk real briefly about the new injury report.
People may not even know this.
So to catch up to speed, it used to be that if a player was injured, they had to be designated as either probable, which means better than a 50% chance to play, right? Or was it 75?
75.
Questionable, which is 50-50.
Yep.
And doubtful, which is like a less than 25% chance.
Yep.
And then out is you're out. That used to be the designation now. Changed where there's no more probable. It's all like questionable now. If you're even 99.9%, you're questionable.
Yeah, which makes this show that much more important, and Sunday mornings that much more important.
Yeah, Brian and I have some big plans for Sunday mornings. Not only will we be extremely active on Twitter especially, I'm going to be taking advantage of a relatively new technology on Facebook called Facebook Live, where for a little, amount of time, 10, 15 minutes maybe, depending on how many people show up and need some help, I can help you real time on Facebook Live. All you have to do is follow our page, 515 Fantasy Football, like our page, and come Sunday mornings, you'll get that little notification that says, Andy's answering questions now. Pop on there. It's all live. It'll be from probably either my basement or my living room.
It'll be sweet.
It'll be cool. And, if you have questions or anything, I can help you with, who to start. And you're right, Brian. This will be great for, inactives, actives, inactives, because those are always announced just prior to kickoff. It's a little more tricky when you're trying to decide between, a guy who, is playing at noon, but you got a guy who has a better matchup at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, it's
but
always
he's
tough.
questionable, and you don't know if he's going to be active or not. You won't find out till
Err
later.
on the side of caution.
Yeah, a lot more often than not when you have a split decision to make like that, if you know the guy at noon is playing, you probably want to plug him in. Unless you know something throughout the course of a week and you've gotten an indication that despite this questionable tag, this player's probably going to play at 3 o'clock. So,
okay, Flea Flicker. How much time we got left?
oh, we got plenty of time.
We got
man.
plenty of time?
Yeah,
Okay.
we got
So,
4 minutes left.
Boom, next topic.
Oh, that's it? We're
Yep,
done.
that's it.
Okay.
You're done.
All right.
What do you think about leagues where the rest of the league gets to vote on your trade?
No,
So,
hate 'em.
like,
no.
why?
This came up in the draft
Yeah,
where you're
sure did.
commish, and
Yep.
you are the commissioner here.
Yes.
I don't think anybody should have anything to say about it except for the commissioner. Why else are you the commissioner? Are you just basically holding the money for
yeah,
everybody?
Yeah, pretty much.
I think if you're the commissioner, you should be the one making the ultimate decision when there are disputes like that.
So we have a 70% rule.
That's dumb.
So 7 out of the 10 teams can vote it down. And that's because we have a lot of close people, and it's a safety check just to make sure.
You're the commissioner. You know
I should get paid too.
when something's obviously lopsided. You pay close enough attention, and you should be able to make that determination instantly, not have to wait for people to vote on something. I hate waiting. That's basically what this,
Yes, you do.
this,
Yes, you do.
This boils down to my impatience. When I traded Eddie Lacy for Keenan Allen, I was like, why is Eddie Lacy's face still on my roster? Like that same
like he
night.
wants me to literally rip the sticker off and move it.
I wanted Eddie Lacy's face on my Yahoo app on my phone. I wanted his face off my team.
Okay, so now what do you think about leagues that have financial penalties for everything you do? Wins, losses, trades, transactions.
I don't mind that. I think if that's the way you want to play and there's an incentive or, decentive,
Yeah,
I guess.
sure.
I don't mind
One
that
of
so
my
much.
biggest pet peeves is I used to be in a league, and literally at the end of the year, there would be teams with waiver wires of 120 moves. There was one guy who would literally pick up 6 people every single week.
Wow.
Because he would sit there, and it was all real time. Bam, 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 bam. And it drove me nuts.
I'd rather be an active league, though. I'd rather have that than just people just sitting on their hands all day.
Well, that's why there's financial penalties strapped to everything.
Yeah, I don't mind it if that's the way you want to play. I think can be pretty costly, I think, eventually. But then again, hopefully you're evening all that out by listening to the show, getting good advice, starting the right people.
Flea Flicker, you've held the ball too long. Come on, come on.
What are you talking about, man? I didn't even know that was what this was supposed to be. I thought it was just one topic, and you ended yours at the 3-minute mark, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
wait, we still have 7.5 minutes to talk. But we're actually time to wrap this one up, I think. I'm tired now. This is your goal, wasn't it?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
feel like I just ran a mile.
Defense is coming. Got to throw the ball. Go, go,
What the
go.
hell is wrong with you?
It's late.
I guess, yeah, you're starting to go to a little batty on me here, buddy. So we're going to thank you for listening very much. Again, follow us on Facebook, 515 Fantasy Football, on Twitter, at 515 Fantasy, at Andy Hall Radio, at Ike, IKEFFB, at Ike FFB is Brian's handle on Twitter. You can catch us on a weekly basis on iTunes, Stitcher. If you like us, help us out. Rate us, review us. It helps the visibility. It helps people find us. It makes it easier. If we show up on favorites lists,
There will be
eventually-
a party. There will be a party.
Dude, I will throw our listeners a party.
Yep.
I
Bam.
Definitely.
If you have flea flicker topics, send those in.
Yes. Anytime you want to send us suggestions, show your squad, hashtag show your squad on Twitter. We want to see your draft boards, take pictures of those. If you want us to, give you an honest assessment of your team, we'd be happy to do that as well. We're all encompassing here. And again, we will never ignore you.
Give us your format, though. Give us your format.
I thought you were going to say, give us your phone number.
That too.
Give me your firstborn. Okay. It's time to go. Until next time, first week 1 of the regular season. Next show. Awesome. 515 Fantasy Football on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. Have a great day.